Hey everyone, we'll start in about 3 minutes. Hey everyone, happy Sunday. Thank you all for being here. Today we have the winning mindset designer Kyra and the social skill expert Ego Drive in our space to talk about upper limits of high achievers. I like Kyra. She's young, very capable, confident, empathic, understanding, clear-minded, nurturing, and insightful. She's also a master hypnotherapist for CEOs scaling to 7 to 9 figures. She helps others to design a winning mindset, break through glass ceiling, and anxiety to boost performance with neuroscience. She embodies many healthy aspects of feminine energy. Like Ego Drive, he's young, powerful, confident, honest, a straight shooter. He's authentic. He embodies many healthy aspects of masculine energy. He also has a social skill workshop that teaches advanced social strategies. He recently wrote the first volume of the Encyclopedia of Social Skills. Check out his profile. If you're not following Kira and Ego Drive, give him a follow. You won't be disappointed. Hey, Kira. Thanks for being here. How are you?
Hi, Son. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Happy Sunday.
Yes, thank you always for such a really beautiful introduction. I always appreciate it. Ego is on his way. He just checked into, I think he said his hotel, so he should be on in just a minute. But I'm very excited to dive into this topic because I know I talk about it all the time, but I don't know that it's something that is really commonly known, but does impact many high achievers, anyone going to new heights, new levels of success in any area of your life. So, this will be a really good foundational talk that you can apply to really any area, whether it be relationships, whether it be success, and so on.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I know you have a lot of experience with this topic. Also, you have many customers who are high achievers, so you know a lot about this. So go ahead and take the lead. Do you have any opening thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to just start off by talking about what upper limits are. And so upper limits is a threshold in which, you have a certain threshold for success, for happiness, for relationships. And once you approach or surpass that threshold, that's when you start to self-sabotage. That's when the self-doubt starts to come in, where you start to like self-doubt. Can I do this? Is this really for me? Am I good enough? Am I capable enough? Will I be able to handle it? So on. And then the hesitation and doubt leads to procrastination, leads to overthinking, leads to analysis paralysis, overwhelm, where we're not actually aligning our action to align with the goals that we have in mind, that we consciously know, hey, like I want to hit that next milestone. So really looking at what mental blocks subconsciously are going to be getting in your way. And you'll know if you have this, this problem, let's call it, or issue. And it's really common amongst high performers because, you know, I work a lot with the top 1% entrepreneurs, founders, and, at every level of success, we think like success is so great. You'll always have a next level. You'll always have, you'll reach a next level, but then you create another glass ceiling, right? It's just the way that the mind works. And so we're going to talk about actually breaking through your glass ceiling at your current level. And again, when we're thinking about, breaking through that upper limit, we are really looking at changing and expanding your neurology to be able to handle more pressure, more stress, be able to actually handle and hold more happiness, right? Because there is going to be, which we're going to talk about, a worthiness and deservingness complex around having more, right? Sometimes when we're programmed that we're unworthy or not good enough, we will actually block opportunities. And I think that's actually a good place to start. Why is this a problem, right? The reason is because there is a limiting belief or set of limiting beliefs, which, if you don't know what those are, these are beliefs that we adopt as children from the ages of 0 to 7, when we are learning about ourselves and learning about the world, about everything that we know: money, success, love, so on. And when we have limiting beliefs around those, then we start to create limits for ourselves. And that will determine what kind of action we'll take, what opportunities we'll go for. And, it's kind of like you may know exactly how to have the perfect health, right? The perfect body, the perfect relationship, the next steps that you need to take in business for the success that you want, but you aren't doing it, right? So it's this discrepancy of like, you know exactly what to do, but you aren't doing it. Diet is like the easiest one, right? Like having like the quote unquote dream body. You lift weights, you do some cardio, you make sure you hit your macros, hit a certain calorie intake. Everyone has the $1 million strategy, but for some reason you don't do it, right? So this is, just a very simple example. But again, if you know that there's something in your life where it's like, I know exactly what I need to do, but I'm not doing it, there is something that is getting in your way. Another kind of symptom and sign is that every time you're moving towards that next level, that next goal, and you find yourself starting to doubt and second guess yourself, can I do this? Am I capable? Kind of the examples I explained earlier. And you're finding yourself hesitating kind of like at the last push, you're hitting an upper limit, right? Where you start to self-sabotage because your belief structure and your neurology is not ready and primed to have it. And this is why also, if you happen to hit that next level of success and you can't seem to hold on to it, like everything starts falling apart, it's because you actually doubt yourself into losing it because you do not hold that identity yet to hold that next level. Because we all know that like our identity is our personality, and you need to create your next level identity, actually envelop those habits and execute those behaviors in order to build it, right? Another, I'm going to use the example of health and fitness. I also own a gym as well. So this is like the easiest thing that most people understand. When people are thinking about like, I want to lose 10 pounds, they're not thinking about, you know, what they're normally thinking about is like just the goal, right? But what they need to focus on is just like, okay, today I need to show up and like do my diet, and I need to like, and I don't even like to use the word diet, right? Do the proper nutrition that aligns with my goals. do the workouts that align with my goals, and just showing up day in, day out. It's the habits, right? And that is your identity. So we really need to focus on the habits and the identity, the behaviors of, in order to get to the goal, that make the goal inevitable, right? So, you all know me. If you've ever listened to me before, I love to go on tangents. But sorry, guys, bear with me here. And so, I'll always loop back. And so, yeah, the reason this becomes a problem is because when we are hitting that upper limit, the opportunities that are right in front of you, this is why it may feel like it feels so close, or like it just slips through your fingers, or, you keep getting in your own way. This is what's happening. Okay. So I'm sure we've all had those moments and we're like, why does this keep going on? And you'll notice it could be cyclical, right? It'll keep happening, especially when they're like really big opportunities. And there are three main reasons, right, why this happens. But before we get into that, there's a better understanding of like this, like simply put, you're too comfortable where you are. Okay. Like we all know that, like, even when we reach like a new goal, a new level, we start to get comfortable, right? Because we've like acquired the skills, we like start to normalize our new success, the new relationships, the new life that we've created. And then we start to find a comfort zone. Like our brains love familiarity, it wants certainty, right? And the truth is, where you're going, there is a subconscious consequence. Okay. And those are the reasons or excuses to stay where you are, because subconsciously, there are risks or perceived risks that seem greater than the potential benefit, the potential reward, right? And this is where a lot of people mentally get blocked because they're focusing on the hardships, the challenges. Like, it's too hard. That's not available to me. It's too much sacrifice, so on and so on, right? So, when we grapple with uncertainty and change, which is probably the number one challenge for even my clients in the top 1%, even in the top point like 0.05%, they hate uncertainty, right? Because they want a level of control in their future. And there's obviously a bit of a paradox with that, where we have to not look at uncertainty as something bad. Like we've learned, like, oh no, like uncertainty, what if, right? That's like the number one problem, right? What if it goes wrong? That's where our brain is wired to do, because we're wired to look for survival and safety and like make sure we're okay. But the reality is, like, at that next level, especially any mindset geared towards major success, is understanding uncertainty is just possibility, right? It's like a land, like an abundance of opportunities in which you can create something. So you have to learn to normalize and get comfortable with that. But in any case, when we grapple with uncertainty and change, when we grapple with our upper limits, this is what keeps you stuck, because all you can focus on is the consequence, the pain, which is going to keep you at your current level of success, right? And, if you aren't able to reprogram the identity that brought you to the current level of success, right? And it's comfortable here, which is part of the problem. Like, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you need to start evolving and reprogramming a new identity, right? The next level identity, so you can build it out. So, Zon, any thoughts before I move on to kind of the three main things? And I know the three main things you're going to be able to resonate with. Absolutely. I'm sure you always have great stories to share. But I wanted to just take a quick pause there before we move on.
Oh, thank you so much. Also, I read your email newsletter yesterday. You talk
Oh.
about this, so I know the three main things you're going to talk about. I really like what you said about being too comfortable where you are. I can really resonate with that. I think many people can. And once I become so comfortable where I am, as I'm leveling up and achieving more, it feels unfamiliar and scary. That
Mhm.
brings a certain discomfort. Like you said, the uncertainties. You don't know what's going to happen. So there's a fear thing there. That's another thing. Yeah, for me, I believe that we often don't rise to the highest of our ability and potentials. We often rise to the highest of our subconscious limits. That's what I believe
That's
in.
right.
A lot of times it just happens unconsciously for most of us. In other words, that we rise to the limits of our self-defeating beliefs and limiting beliefs. And we usually do this unconsciously. Using myself as an example, I've observed This happened many, many times before for me, and it took a long time for me to realize this pattern. When I'm leveling up and good things start to happen, what I can actually do sometimes is unconsciously self-sabotage it because my limiting belief says that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it. So this I got this program running in the background that's telling me that all my life. So this self-sabotaging thing just a way for me to balance my external reality of good things happening with my internal limiting beliefs about life. So it needs to balance it out. And in the situation that I cannot self sabotage it, do you know what I do? I actually unknowingly or unconsciously reduce my enjoyment of the good thing that's happening to me. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
so messed up, but that's happened so many times before. Basically, it's a strong, deep inner limiting belief says I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it. Yet the good things are happening. So there's a conflict here. And the limiting belief takes over. So I either self sabotage to equalize it, or I convince myself this is okay. So I reduce my enjoyment of it in order to support to further strengthen these limiting beliefs. And the scary thing about this was that I was not conscious of these things and was controlling my life in so many years. It took so many years of work and observation to really discover this. So yeah, if I'm start to achieve things, I'm moving up, I'm leveling up, and this thing kicks in, I'm not aware of it. Yeah, and it becomes my upper limits, and I can,
What?
yeah,
Mhm.
this blockage, I cannot break through it. Hmm.
Yeah, those are all really, really great points. And we've created, us as humans for ourselves, we've created these limits based on the learnings, right? So when we can reprogram them, and this is of course what I do with my clients in hypnosis, is we remove the limits because when there is no limit, you just move forward and you will go full force and you make bold actions and executions towards your goals, right? Um, so many good points there, and that is the trouble because when we think about like even my clients who have generated like millions and millions of dollars, um, you know, this still happens because it's a little voice in your head that like you've normalized, right? Like you can't really do that, or is that really for you? Or like everyone's gonna like find out you're a fake, like you're not really as successful as you think, or so on and so forth, right? Are you really gonna be able to handle it? Like and all these little voices that you just are like, oh yeah, there's just like whatever, it's a little voice. And you may still take action, but it is something that's going to slow you down and hold you back from actually creating the biggest delta, the biggest leap for yourself, because you're always going to talk yourself down. Because again, we're going to talk about the three reasons why, right? And this is where, most of my clients and for most people in general never reach their full potential. And it's so frustrating, right? Because you're like, I know I can achieve that. But you're like, but why do I keep getting in my own way? Why do I keep procrastinating? Why do I keep getting super distracted? Why do I keep avoiding opportunities? Like I've had clients literally avoid like acquisitions or big contracts worth like millions and millions of dollars. And it's exactly in line with the direction they're going, with the legacy, the company, the success they want to build, but yet they don't move on it, right? They're paralyzed for it. They avoid it. And there's something happening for them internally, subconsciously, that's literally alerting them that this is danger, right? Even though, of course, logically we're like, oh my God, who wouldn't sign that contract, right? But there is something paralyzing them from the inside, and it's a subconscious belief. Like, this is why our beliefs are so important to reprogram, restructure, redesign, because our beliefs will determine, have a heavy, heavy influence on not only how you think about yourself, right? Because we know like thoughts are important, but also that trickles down into like how good you feel. And when you feel good, you're literally going to be soaring through action and decision and clarity and momentum and creativity and excitement, and like your guns a blazing, right? Like you're like flying to the moon. But when you're doubting yourself, when you're second guessing yourself, when you're hesitating, when you're doing that type of like anxious, stressed, overwhelm, we drain our energy naturally, and there's less life force energy to actually execute towards our desires and our goals that are like meant for you, right? So, when we talk about the three major reasons why upper limits get created, there's these are the three that I always see commonly amongst all of my high achieving clients. Is like, number one is the most obvious, right? It's the sacrifice. There's a high level of sacrifice, and the cost of success can feel really, really high, right? Think about like the first milestone you reach. Like, you're probably like constantly working, always exhausted, burning out, right? And if you continue in that cycle, there's endless responsibilities, especially if you have a bigger company, you're the CEO, you have like not only your family to take care of, but like hundreds, thousands of employees that like depend on you for their livelihood. Like, and this all rests on your decisions, right? How to expand, what to acquire, how to restructure. And that's a lot of pressure, right? You may be working yourself like literally burnt to a crisp, where you have no work-life balance. Your family life is hanging by a thread. Your partner is wondering why you're never at home. You don't really see your kids. And even when you do, you're rarely present. Your mind is somewhere else, right? It just feels as though like the success, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, like, and it only just grows, right? Like, as you climb even higher. And a few things happen where you're wondering, number one, like, can you even handle it, right? Like, you're already at a maximum. Can you even handle it? Number two, there is a definite fear of losing it all, right? Because you've never had this type of success, never had this type of wealth, never had this type of status. What if you lose it all? Because of the decisions that you make, the weight of your decision is massive at this point, right? And it kind of just feels like this is, where people feel like they can't really enjoy the success they've created, right? So they're wondering in their mind, I see this in my clients, like, what is all of this for? Like, like you're thinking you're gonna reach this promised land of like hitting all these milestones with like a lot of financial security and like reaching all your goals, but it only seems that the stress, the anxiety, it's like literally dominating and coloring every area of your life, and thoughts of quitting, right? Thoughts of opting out, thoughts of just selling for much less, and you settle for much less when you sell your company. Like, these thoughts are like looming, right? So like, it's like, how are you supposed to like continue like this, right? It's not very sustainable. So that's the first obvious one. And so you're fearing like, oh my gosh, like if I go to the next level, like, is this just going to be more of this amplified? The second is a lack of safety. Okay, so these are the three S's, right? Anyone who is an entrepreneur, even if you're in corporate world, like, entrepreneur specifically though, it's super tiring, it's super taxing, right? Like, there's a price you pay to be an entrepreneur. And lots of entrepreneurs deal with anxiety, they deal with depression. It's really mentally hard, right? And it's very lonely. Like, nobody in your life probably understands you, not even like the ones that are closest to you, right? And this is where people start to feel, and many entrepreneurs come into this space already feeling like an outsider, already feeling different, which is why they're super successful, by the way, right? They have a vision, right? They're not acclimatizing or, being just part of the, society. They have something greater to give, but that's a very scary thing to fear, that you won't be accepted, right? But this is where like the isolation can start to grow, and the fear of becoming unrelatable starts to get larger, right? With success, with money, especially if there has been money stories growing up where like rich people were greedy or bad or take from the poor, or like, all kinds of stories, right? And I know as adults you're thinking, well, like, those things aren't true, but subconsciously on a belief structure level, they may be implicating you, right? If you're having these kind of fears deep down that prevent you from taking action, right? So the other thing too is that there's also an intensifying fear of judgment of those that are around you, like your employees, your loved ones. I was speaking to a client the other day, like net worth of 60 million. And he was like, well, I'm like, I live like a pretty like humble life because I live close to a lot of my investors. And, I really want to drive the Ferrari, and I definitely could afford one, but I don't want people to see me like that because, and I was like, because what is the reason, right? There's a deeper reason. And he's like, well, then they might think that I'm not working hard enough for their money because they don't have the type of money I have. And again, like, this is holding him back from like really living the life that he like deserves to have. He's like worked very, very hard, but he won't allow himself. Again, he's reaching a threshold of happiness, an upper limit for himself. And he has every resource in the world available now, right? So again, even when you quote unquote have it all internally, if you have not reprogrammed what's happening for yourself, right, your self-worth, which is the next thing, you're not going to be able to enjoy the success ever, right? It's always going to be like striving for more, which is a whole nother conversation that we have about high performers. And then again, the last thing is the low self-worth, right? Even though you have success, everybody thinks you're the most confident, have it all together. I wish I could be that woman, man, whoever, right? They're like, oh my gosh, like you're so lucky. But internally, you're having a completely different story, right? And you feel that you actually have to keep up this image, which only pushes you to more burnout. Right. And you're actually feeling like an imposter. You're wondering if your success, if this is something you can keep up, especially if you're looking at new avenues, new companies. You're doubting, like, can I actually do this again? Even though a part of you knows you have that doubt, which again, this is time is money. Like every time that you doubt yourself, that you don't take action on the decisions in your mind, you're losing money and time, right? And time we never can get back. And deep down, you are feeling a bit like a fraud. You wonder if you can actually really like ever close the gap on how people see you and how you feel inside. And so, all of this will undermine your confidence, filling your minds, as we talked about, Zon mentioned, like the little doubts in your mind, the little limitations. There's just these little voices, but they cost you a lot. They hold you back from seizing really big opportunities. And the fear of actually success is what will paralyze you. So I'm going to just take a pause there. If anyone has questions or anything that like that, feel free to always jump in. But these are the three things: the self worth, the safety, the sacrifice. These start to create upper limits, and they're actually caused from core limiting beliefs, right? So these are all connected, and they're going to pop up in new ways because, as they say, new level, new devil. You have to become a new version of yourself, right? And that doesn't mean you're a different person, but there is a new identity that is required for you to again take bolder risks, to see yourself already at the level to make sure that you're actually taking the aligned action, the bold action that will allow you to close the gap even faster.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, the high sacrifice, the lack of safety, and low self worth. Yeah, I have a friend. I've known him for more than 44 years, ever since we were in junior high school playing basketball together until now. So I've known him for many years, and he and his brother, when kind of the internet started to take over, they started an online watch company. So they started selling watches.
Mm,
And then what happened was that he put all his time and effort into it. He hardly see his wife and son, and he put his house on mortgage so he could actually get more money to invest in the business and all that. So he did everything he could. And then the company was a success. He made a lot of money. They're still making very good money. But you know what he told me once? Because we get together like once or twice, once a month to get together for dinner. He told me, he said that even though everything is going so well, he made so much money. He lives in such a big house with an infinity pool overlooking the whole bunch of views and all that. He said he still wakes up like around 3 in the morning. He wakes up all shaking and sweaty. He's afraid he's going to lose it all.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's under so much stress and anxiety. He doesn't have the safety that you're talking about. And also, as a son of an immigrant like me, he often wonders, is he really deserves all this? Low self worth part kicking in and all that, survival mode and all that stuff. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing he does, and he doesn't know why. So he cope with by drinking. So he,
Yeah, addiction is very common.
yeah, so he he got into wine. There's so many things about wine. He had a little wine cellar in his home. The temperature control. He was telling me the wine you gotta get this, get that. He was drinking like a bottle or two a night. It got so bad for his health. He started to get gout, and then he has to stop drinking. And then his brother, even though they're really rich and doing really well at business, the brother told me that's the only way. This is before the marijuana weed was legalized. He told me it's the only way I can relax is to get high. I try everything. I cannot relax. I'm so stressed in my body and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
even though they have so much, they end up coping and they're afraid they don't have safety and they sacrifice so much. And at the same time, the fear things kicking in and the low self worth, just like you said, the 3 points. It's a high sacrifice, lack of safety, and low self worth. They cannot truly enjoy what they have earned. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but that's the reality. Hmm.
Yes, this
Hello.
is one of the biggest things. Hi, I was just gonna say, Ego, how are you
Hey,
doing?
Ego, how
Doing
are
great. I'm
you?
sorry for being late
So
again.
good.
All good.
How are you guys doing?
Join on in.
Well, I just wanted to say, all of it, at the end of the day, all of it just stems from sort of fear of the unknown. Because if you think about addictions or if you think about staying in this level of comfort, at the end it's just a little bit of escapism from actually doing the thing that is going to get you to your next level, right? So we're talking about upper limits, and they're no different than any other mental problem you may have. At the end of the day, it's just the fear of the unknown. And Kiara, you talk a lot about this, where we try all to normalize certainty and stay in control, and that's exactly what makes us lose
Hmm.
control every single time.
Yes.
And it felt so relatable, Zon, when we were talking about addiction. And you guys know I've had plenty of addictions before. It is escapism. It's just you're refusing to face the one thing that is going to solve your problems.
Yes, it's usually the thing that you're avoiding the most is the thing that you must do.
Yeah,
This is
that's how
the
it works.
irony of it all.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And yeah, that is something that I see a lot with, high performers where the addiction is something that is relevant and very prevalent. Zahn, I wanted to really actually expand on something that you had mentioned about your friend who's ultra successful, but waking up with sweats and like stressed out and, you know, has addictive tendencies. This is super common. And this is one of the biggest things that I also see. I have two kind of subsectors of clients, one who are like wanting to self actualize, right? They're like really wanting to like maximize, optimize, be the best, program their mind with no limits and, feel limitless. And there's another subsector that is exactly this client. I was talking to a client of mine, and he was telling me, he was like, my friends have sold their companies for like hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. Like, they've achieved every milestone, private jet, everything that you could possibly imagine. And they are so depressed. They are so anxious. They are so miserable. And something that, I really love to talk about because there is an ascension that happens, right? Like mindset, there are many levels to achieve. We'll probably never achieve them all in this lifetime, but if you are someone who's in personal development and loves how the mind works and unlocking more of your mind to really become your best self, because the more limits we let go of, right? And again, these are all learned. They're not your identity, they're not your personality. Anything that like is like, oh, like why do I keep doing that, or why have I always thought this, like these are just stories that someone taught you a long time ago and you can change them, right? They do require reprogramming. Obviously, I'm biased with hypnosis. Changing your neuroplasticity is going to be the fastest way. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, slow repetition, finding roots on yourself. Like that, I did that myself when I started. I spent like 7 hours a day for like months and months and months over the pandemic, but I had nothing else to do. So it was a great use of my time. But in any case, a really important thing is that for most people, when we think about success, right, it's actually a survival game, right? We're thinking about like, oh, I want to like prove to my family that I could have reached that goal and like be super successful, right? Like a lot of us have that. Even when I started as an entrepreneur, I was like the black sheep of my family, and I always like I quit my job, my corporate job, every like 3 6 months, and my parents were like, "What is going on? Like, are you gonna be okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just like." I'm not happy. And, they're like starting to make plans, like leaving me like, more things than like my siblings, because they're like, I don't think Kira's going to be okay. Like, I don't think she's ever going to become successful, It's kind of the story, right? Because I didn't follow the path, do the sciences like my sisters did, and like marry into money and like all kinds of things like that, right? So, the stories that they wanted me to subscribe to. And, I really wanted to like prove to them like I was going to become successful, right? So like there's that. Someone may have told you that you can't make money doing what you love, or someone would have maybe told you, and it may have not even been your family, that you'll never be successful. And then you like have this like pain, this like vengeance to like make it happen. Show them all, right? Proving energy is very taxing, will cost you a lot, and we'll talk about that as well. So anyways, what I'm getting to is that, what ends up happening is that there is this game that we play to achieve success. And it's mostly driven by extrinsic motivation, right? Proving to others, obviously, like avoiding poverty. Nobody wants to like end up on the streets. It's super scary, right? There's like a fear-based motivation that pushes you forward, right? And for many of my clients that reach financial freedom, they know that it's come to a cost and comes at a cost, because at some point they're like, oh my gosh, like, as we've been speaking about, it's laced with anxiety, it's laced with stress. There is actually guilt. It's like not the freedom they had expected. And like we're all thinking like, oh, financial freedom, right? It's not what you think unless you work on yourself, because otherwise you're creating a new type of trap, right? And the reason why this trap happens is because you're, as we mentioned, working hard to meet the expectations of your family, make sure that your family is taken care of, that like you're keeping up with a certain image of your growing success. And again, this is that program that we talk about all the time that's super destructive, the validation program, right? We're doing this actually for others, which is why you're so miserable and you can't enjoy your life, because it was never actually for you, right? You have financial security now, but you don't have freedom. Those are two very different things that people eventually realize. And I hope for many of you, if you're not already there, that you start to learn about this sooner, right? I learned about this before I started making money, and it's changed my life. I'm able to actually enjoy it. And of course, I get caught up in cycles of survival where I'm literally trying to push and push and push, but I also understand that there's this other aspect available. And so this is where people burn out and you feel like you can't stop and you're spinning a million plates and you can't ever shut off your mind. You're waking up in the middle of the night and you're like freaking out, you're gonna lose it all. Like I had clients literally like with millions in the bank, like would go to Starbucks and check their accounts every time to make sure like they still had money. And it's like, of course there's money in there. But again, these subconscious programs are very, very ingrained, right? If it kind of feels like it's always been this way, it's a good sign. So in any case, when you have this and you're living for others, right, everything's going to have a layer of stress. Everything is going to be tainted. You're never going to be present because, as Ego mentioned, you're very fearful of the future, the uncertainty, because you don't trust yourself, right? Because you're constantly having to look for the validation from others. It's not something you own. You have to constantly seek it, which is why you have to constantly achieve more. There is no break, right? There is no promised land of like reaching the financial success, and it only worsens because, as we know, money is an amplifier, right? So, you know, what's really important is that there's a very pivotal kind of bifurcation point that happens here, where you realize that you're playing the success game, which is rooted in survival, right? You're still treating yourself and seeing yourself as that person that started a long time ago that maybe had nothing, or maybe even less than, but you're not that person anymore, right? What, that pain that drove you to the ceiling faster, that drove you to this level of success, served its purpose. But now it's going to become your hindrance. This is where like people like, it's like I was doing like what I used to do and it's not working, or like the stress is only getting like, it just starts to get worse, right? And so what you have to realize is that at this point, at this inflection point where it's kind of like, what is all this for? Like, I have all this money. Like, aren't I supposed to be happy? Or like, will I ever be happy? What happens is that you realize that you have to actually play a different game. New levels require new games. I love gamification. I'm sure many of you do too, right? So this is a new level, and new levels require new strategies, new mindsets, new games, right? And this game is actually the game of fulfillment, of real freedom, right? And that includes massive success, because this is the shift that starts to happen into intrinsic motivation. And we still need some stress, okay? Like some stress is good, but not when it's like hijacking your day. Okay. We need some stress. We need some fear. We need some emotion, something that's going to fire you up, but we don't want it to be something that you can't control. You have to understand yourself really well to have the emotional intelligence to utilize and channel that. And then when we make this switch into intrinsic motivation, this is when, again, we're not living and doing everything for validation and for others' approval. It's now becoming for the self. And this is where people feel higher levels of fulfillment, more happiness, and more of a motivational drive towards desire, right? This is a very different type of motivation because it's for you. And this is where people are like, I want to create impact. I want to change the world. I want to have this like amazing experience for my family, but it's because I want it, not because someone told me I should have this type of life. And this is when you start to feel good and happy and fulfilled because it's your choice. You're living life on your terms, it's your design. But again, this is a new playing field. This is a new strategy, a new game you have to play. And it happens at a certain inflection point, a certain level of success, because you're realizing that you don't have it all. You don't have the freedom you thought you were going to. And so that's when you have to shift and reprogram your mindset to play a different level, right? You're playing at a different level. You want to reach a different level. So, and that is the next level, right? So that's a little bit about, why that happens, because, in the old program, your self-worth is tied to your success, your image, and what others think of you, right? And you cannot achieve that. You can't jump into the new game as long as it's tied to those limiting beliefs. So once you reprogram them with hypnosis, like it's like a huge weight has been lifted off your shoulder. You suddenly have new agency, new choice, new creativity, new ways of thinking and abundantly about the choices that you have in this world, right? Like you'll actually be free. And that's what we all internally want to feel. We want to feel safe. We want to feel loved deep down. I know it sounds corny, but it is the truth. And we want to feel ultimately free from any sort of validation. And it doesn't mean we don't like to like get compliments and feel good and like see good things happening in our world and the success, but you don't need it to feel good about yourself. It's just an extra kind of bonus in your life, if that makes sense. And then it makes living so much better, right? Because when you do this, you're in this state, you're not worrying about what others are thinking, you're no longer in fear, right, of losing it all. Your world is not like colored by anxiety and stress anymore, right? You can just be, and you understand that you're in control of yourself, you trust yourself, you believe in yourself, which makes uncertainty way easier to navigate because you got you, right? You're not waiting for someone else or something to tell you that you got you. You know that very deeply. So navigating, moving through the world becomes a lot easier. There's a lot more ease in the challenges. There's a lot more ease in jumping into those next big levels and taking those bold risks because you know that you have yourself and you don't need any outside information to tell you otherwise.
Beautiful. Yeah, really resonate with all of that. And I think that's a moment you're proving yourself to others. Like to say, I maintained this status or this certain image. Your life is no longer yours. It becomes a certain rule within you. If you cannot
Yes.
prove your image, you're never going to be happy. So you're setting this goal internally and it really robs you. And I'm fully convinced that money doesn't make you happy. Money give you a lot of freedom, but it doesn't make you happy. For example, my sister and my brother-in-law, they sold their company maybe a few years ago, like a few $100 million. And because they suddenly have so much money, and my brother-in-law was working with his brothers, and all the percentage was written down on paper very clearly, but they all wanted more. So what ended up happening was there was so many scheming and all fighting and arguing and this and that. They rarely talked to each other anymore. So it was probably better that if he wasn't this rich, he could maintain the relationship better. And even his dad wanted a piece of him. saying, if you're donating all this money to this organization, why don't you give it to me? And their kids are kind of estranged. One of them moved to Australia. He just wants to start his own life. He doesn't have anything to do with it. And so from that situation, what I learned is that the way they did it is that they sacrificed so much and they finally reached the destination. They quote unquote became rich. But there's some basic components. The family is kind of broken. There's like a certain price to pay. So I'm fully convinced that money doesn't make you happy. It gives you freedom and all that. And it's just kind of sad. And there's a lot of fear, like you're saying, it's a fear driven thing. Yeah. And there's anxiety, fear, coping, and a whole bunch of stress and all that. Now, for this topic, I'm wondering, Kara, how do you discover, well, how do you help your clients discover their upper limits? Or what would you tell people if they want to discover their own upper limits? What can they do to discover that?
Yeah, definitely. The process with me in session with clients is that I ask them some questions. When we're going to talk about some of those questions today, but I basically just locate them. Often the upper limits for anybody are going to be hidden, right? Because they're in our blind spot, because we're wanting to see the things, the evidence in our life that support the reasons, aka excuses, of why we should stay where we are, right? Uh, the two questions I always like to ask that will kind of alert you of what your upper limits are and what kind of are the barriers to your next level. Number one are, what are the consequences of reaching your next level, right? And just write them out, and trust what comes to mind, right? This is a big thing that um, I work with my clients on cultivating, is trusting the first thing that comes to mind, because we've often rationalized and we've often convinced ourselves of a certain narrative. So when we're more open to just trusting the first thoughts, even if they feel disconnected or you're like, why would I think that? Allow it to be a judgment free space, because you might be surprised in what you find. So, what are the consequences of getting what I want, aka the next level? And the second question, which is kind of the flip side of that, is what is the benefit of staying where I am? What are the benefits of staying where I am? Because that will tell you why you're not ready to move, right? Why you're telling yourself, in any case, why you're not ready to move. Because the reality is you're never ready, right? Nobody's ever ready to do the thing they've never done before. It's very uncomfortable. And so, again, uh, those are the two questions I would ask you to consider here if you're curious about finding out what your upper limits are, what your barriers are. But something I do with my clients in session is it's a series of questions that are very specific, tailored to them, depending on where their answers and their mind goes on discovering exact root causes. And that's what we go to reprogram, right? That's where we eliminate any fear around like success, around failure, around judgment, around abandonment, around not good enough, right? Because when we eliminate, again, if you didn't have the fear that it wasn't going to work or that you weren't going to get rejected or that the deal wasn't going to close, you just do it. Right. But then we tell ourselves, like, the reason we don't just do it is because we're telling ourselves it's not going to work in some capacity. So this is where it's very important, to train your mind, cultivate your mind to eliminate any barriers. And they're going to come back. Like, this is something you need to understand. Like, it'll be less and it'll be different, but they will come back in new ways at every new level. Because again, like, you've never done it before, and that's normal and that's okay. But the faster you can eliminate any mental barriers that are subconscious, and again, they're subconscious out of your conscious awareness often, the faster you're going to move towards your goals, because there's nothing standing in your way. You'll just go ahead and take the action, and you'll continue to take the action and build momentum. That is the fastest way to any level of success, right? So again, we always want to focus on the habits that make success inevitable. Great question. Ego, any thoughts?
I had a question for you, but it's a bit unrelated, and I think I already asked you this before. What happens when you have someone who's not fully convinced when you're doing hypnosis, or you have a client for hypnotherapy, and they have a lot of reservations as whether it's going to work or not?
Yes.
Like, how do you handle that?
Yes. So, first off, I don't take any clients that are completely in disbelief, right? There's a certain level of readiness because generally speaking, the person who I end up working with they've tried a lot of things like the therapy, the psychedelics, the, journaling, the affirmations, and nothing's really sticking, right? So like at this point they're kind of like, okay, I'm willing to try something new, right? Or they just have an openness to
Mhm.
it. One of the big things when I find resistance in sessions, because it will happen, and I think this is a really great question because sometimes my clients are afraid to lose something that they believed has helped them get to success, right? They're like, oh, well, I don't want to get rid of the anger because it like motivates me to like,
I can
like when I
relate
think
to
about my dad.
that.
Yes, I know you can. When I think about my dad and trying to prove him that he told me I'll never be like the success and blah blah blah, like I need that anger, or that betrayal. Oh my gosh, that betrayal, that like where my family lost everything, and now I like remember that and it drives me to, okay, these are the conversations, right? We think about like betrayals, any sort of like people making you feel less than. It pushes us, right? And sometimes what this is called, when people are like, I don't want to let go of this. And, I can tell because they're starting to get like defensive. They're starting to, be a little bit more standoffish. And that's good because that means that I'm reaching a subconscious block that needs to be remedied, right? Any sort of reactivity underneath that, there's a subconscious limiting belief that's holding you back from being your best self. And so, unless we learn to channel it. And so when we, look at that, what I'm looking for is a secondary gain. Okay. So an example of a secondary gain that's very understandable is that like when people, I used to help people quit smoke, right? This is like when I was like starting off as a generalist and people would come to me for all kinds of things like, phobias, smoking, and so on. And people are like, oh, well, like, I smoke because it makes me less anxious. But the reality is that it increases blood pressure. So it actually doesn't help you become less anxious, doesn't actually help you calm down, right? But we've believed and decided and subscribed that it does. So we're like, no, 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 I have to keep this. Or like, getting out of a toxic relationship. Oh, no, 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 I have to stay because like I don't think anyone will ever love me as much as them. To them, that's a secondary, there's a benefit to staying, right? So this is something that we need to look for. This is something that I look for, and then I help them reprogram, I reframe, and then I reprogram the secondary gain, right? And of course, ethically, I will always keep something for a client if I believe it's going to help them and not harm them. But a lot of the time, the secondary gain is something that they've convinced themselves yet again that is going to help them and is not necessarily true. But number two, the biggest thing that most people don't understand is that you don't need to keep the pain, right? So when we think about negative states, yes, they can be very motivating. People are like, oh, it's my edge, right? It's the edge that I need to go ahead and push. And again, like I mentioned, we need some stress, we need some negative emotions, we need some, we need some like, fear to like push us forward. But for most people, they have too much of that is repressed, that's fueling them in the wrong way. Because when you think about like any heightened negative emotion, okay, or you're feeling sick, or you're having a bad day, or you get some bad news, think about like how much motivation you have to do anything. Okay, like generally speaking, like sometimes, yeah, you can like go ahead and push through, but like it's very hard. Okay, like it's very hard. Like you get some like terrible news, you're not like, wow, I feel on top of the moon. Let me like just keep going. No, no, no. You're automatically, you can feel yourself becoming drained, right? And again, we only have so much mental capacity and energy every single day to work towards our goals, to live our best lives, to be happy. And so, when most of our time and energy is utilized in that state because past trauma has held repressed negative emotions that automatically drain us, then we're not going to be at our peak. It's impossible. We're already like starting off kind of handicapped, right? Every single day because we're carrying this stuff around subconsciously, right? And this is a big thing. One of the big things I do with my clients, the very first session, we do a huge clearing, releasing all repressed negative emotions, where we let go of the emotion, we let go of the pain, but we retain the valuable learnings because people are like, well, that pain is made me who I am today. Well, you can let go of the pain, get back your energy, but retain the valuable knowledge and learnings of that experience. And we do it in a very specific way that becomes a very unconscious program that becomes a new behavior for you, a new choice, new levels of emotional intelligence that you can utilize with all the released energy that you now have to go ahead and create the life that you want, right? So this is the big thing. We only need to retain the valuable learnings that made you who you were, but you do not need to hold on to the pain because it's only like it's literally handicapping you every single day that you wake up like at 75%. Why would you do that to yourself? We only have so much time in the world, right? And not that it's like if we're running out of time, but we do have a limited time on this earth to go ahead and live and become and have the maximum of everything that we should have. That's what you deserve, right? But you have to choose it. So I hope that answers your question, but that's kind of one of the biggest things where it just requires some reframing, belief shifting based on where the client is at. And you always have to meet them where they're at to go ahead and then bring them to the realization themselves. Like I cannot convince them, I cannot, tell them because, we all hear good advice that we never listen to. Including myself. I have friends that tell me things and I'm like, yeah, that's good. I still do the opposite thing because again, I have a different belief system that's directing my behavior, even though I know better, right? So this is something just to keep in mind.
Yeah, thank you. That answers.
You beautiful. Go ahead, you go.
Oh, I didn't have anything to say.
Mm, beautiful. That is all true. Very, very true. Yeah, your beliefs create your reality, and from your reality, you have these certain thoughts and emotions, and from this experience of life, a lot of your mindsets are formed. And through this mindset, that's how you operate. It just locks you in back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, these self-defeating beliefs and limiting beliefs are usually thoughts and opinions that you think are true. They're
Mm-hmm.
often mental stories about yourself and others, and they definitely restrict you in so many ways because you believe they're real. From observing myself and like peeling an onion within, it took many years for me to realize. For me, first there's trauma, and when trauma happens, there can be one or more wounds. From each wound, there could be a set of negative emotions, which is stories. And from there, there's traumatic energy and self-defeating and limiting beliefs are formed. And from there, I come up with coping mechanism, defense mechanism, escape mechanism, and tendencies and wound perception, looking at life through my wound, through based upon the stories, and then it creates unpleasant inner atmosphere, and then overall it lowers my vibrations. Yeah, this is really messed up, and I think it would be good that if you have any of these, if you can talk to people or some specialists that can help you discover this. Otherwise, this may take a lot of work, may take years, like you said, Kira. Like for example, I had many self-defeating limiting beliefs like this. I used to think that I'm a failure. I'm too scared. Now is not the time. No, no. I must please others, or that's just not me. I'm not good enough. I'm not original enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know what I want. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm not worthy of success. I don't deserve to be loved. I don't deserve a better life. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough support. I don't have the connections. I can make things happen. Others will always abandon me. No one cares what I have to say. I'm not someone who follows through. If I succeed, I won't be able to sustain it. This is just who I am, and I can't change. I can't be the real me to make others stay. No one will ever like the real me. I'd rather not try than to risk failure. Yeah, I had all these thoughts, all this belief running in the background of me. Yeah, it was really, really messed up and took a lot of work to, and also self-observation. And so what I did was to identify my beliefs. I actually had to pay attention to my excuses, my reactions, what my inner critic says, my projections, my negative feelings and emotions, my negative self talk, how I label myself. I used to call myself worthless trash many, many years ago. hmm That's how bad it was. Also, my self limiting talk with others. Now, with other people on this point, I realized that once you know what your upper limits are and that they're controlling you unconsciously and limiting you, restricting you, creating barriers, if you want to work on these things, you also want to observe other people because you probably don't want to hang out with people who enable you, who actually support your self-defeating and or limiting beliefs. Yeah, you're just not good enough. Yeah, that's never going to happen for you. People who support your beliefs because ultimately these things are within you. They're controlling you. And you are the only one who support your beliefs, making it real for you from one moment to the other. So you don't need other people to make them further strong to enable you on that. So if you have certain tribes or growth groups, they're actually doing this part, making your belief stronger. They're not helping you in the long run. You might want to distance yourself from them when you start to work on this thing. Yeah, so who you hang out with actually makes a huge difference. Also, Kara, I was just wondering that when someone starts to once they've identified their upper limits, if they want to talk to people about this, people who will support them to break through these upper limits, do you know any groups or anything that can help them?
I don't know like specific groups that it like I do know specific groups, but it depends on your current niche and like where you're working within because a big part of this is going to be trying to be the small fish, right, in any group because you want to be around people that make your goals feel small and not in the sense of like less than, but because they make them feel so normal. Like, oh my God, of course you can do that. Like that's actually too small for you because that's going to make you feel like, oh yeah, maybe it is too small for me. Whereas if you're around people, like Zon mentioned, and it could be like definitely probably family and friends. That's the hardest part of it all because they're also the source of your limiting beliefs and traumas. It's true. But they're the ones that are going to be the least supportive because I'm like, well, is that, and they're obviously doing it from a place of love. They don't want you to be hurt. They don't want you to lose anything. They want you to be secure. That's like my family, right? My parents were the exact same. Like they're very scarcity mindset. They didn't want me to like throw away my savings to start my own business, and it, ended up being great, right? So you know, those people are going to question you. Are you sure you should do that? Like, is that a good idea? Like, maybe you won't be able to make it. Like, and they're not trying to be nasty, but it's their limiting beliefs being projected on you, right? So that's going to pull you down if you still, again, you're going to be pulled down to the weakest limiting belief that you have, and you're going to be pulled up by the highest empowering belief that you have. So it depends on what rooms that you're in. And this is like, Zon brought up a very good point that like, first of all, I'm going to answer the question. I have a really bad habit of doing this. Again, I love my tangents. You can find a mastermind group. You can find so many different types of organizations, and there are more and more. I'm part of one called the Base. It's actually, I think, predominantly in Miami and Chicago right now, but there is expansion happening in some other great cities, big entrepreneur hubs. And it's for entrepreneurs and founders and creatives and people who want to make real connections. Great space, right? And people that are like-minded, right? That's going to be super powerful. And to Zon's point though, and just like my own journey, and I'm sure Ego has experienced this too, is unraveling your own limiting beliefs and limitations. And it takes a long time. It takes a lot of self-work, self-awareness. I cried a ton. Like it was like, and I spent like hours and hours and like years. And like the first year I did it on my own, and it took so long for me to understand myself. So that is something that like be committed to that practice. Alternatively, with my clients, this is something I do within months, right? Like I reprogram entire lives within months. And, that's going to be really powerful because, again, it's very hard to see ourselves, right? So that's something that, like, if you want a hard reset, definitely reach out to me and we can talk about how to really reset your mind just so that it's optimally performing for success. So it's optimally performing for your greatest happiness so that you can realize your maximum potential in this lifetime because you deserve to have all the things that you want, right? And anything telling you otherwise, if your voice is like, well, no, like maybe I can't, like that's a limiting belief, right? Anything that's telling you otherwise, that's going against your deepest desires is a limiting belief, right? So that's something that, really commit to yourself because your mind is the downstream of everything that you have in your life. Okay, the eventual nervous system regulation, your moods, your states will determine how big of a risk you'll take, your risk tolerance, right? That will determine how big you'll go in and how big you'll create in the life that you'll get to have for yourself. Again, it is all a downstream of your mindset. So get your head on right. It's one of the most important things that you can do in this lifetime because everything else, your strategy is only as good as your execution. Your execution comes from your mental state and the energy you have to do it, right? It's a full circle movement. So really commit to yourself and I promise you can have the success and the happiness that you've always dreamed of, right? But it has to be an active choice and that choice is not always easy because it can be very hard to see yourself. So again, anything that feels really like, oh, it's always been this way or you don't have what you want, those are the areas that you want to look. Exactly what Ego said. Like, we were talking about like the area that you're avoiding the most is probably one that one will give you the greatest transformation, but will be the most challenging and probably to some degree, not going to sugarcoat it, the most painful to overcome because you're going to have to let go or overcome a big piece of your identity that actually essentially just has to die because then you're going to open up this part of you for something new, for the way that you actually want to be and align with that part of you because most of the parts that need to die is sucking up a lot of your mental space and energy. Like this is like people pleasing. This is, that aligns with the validation cycles and avoiding conflict and like worrying about others. And like, you're not even thinking for yourself. You're just constantly like surviving in defense, like making sure everything around you is good, but like you're not living your life. And that's of course why you're never going to be happy, right? I don't mean to make it sound so grim, but maybe it'll scare you a bit so that you'll jump on the bandwagon, like do the right thing for you because you deserve to have that. So that is the last thing I'm going to say. I have to hop on a client call now. But any last words before we get off today? And Zan, as always, and Ego, thank you for being here. I always love this space. It's always so fantastic.
Same. Just wanted to add, it might be the most painful experience, but it's also going to be the most enjoyable when you look back. You're going to miss those days.
100%. Super worth it. Super worth it.
Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Zon. Again, apologies for being late. I didn't have much to say today. Kira always nails it. Sometimes she forgets, sometimes I complete, but she's always on point. Kira, thank you so much. Zon, thank you so much. I see a few friends. Nick,
Thank
hi.
you.
Sammy, hi. Roseanne, hi. Thank you all for coming on. Zon, I'll let you wrap up the space.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much, Ego. Thank you for being here and sharing your insights and beautiful energies and experience and methods and wisdom and so much more. Thank you for all the listeners. I'm going to talk a little bit more and then I'll close up the space. But thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it. Until next time, see you guys.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone. Next time.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of work to deal with your beliefs, your limiting beliefs and self-defeating beliefs. The first part for me was that I never talked to a therapist. It never occurred to me to talk to a therapist. It was more like my teacher was a Zen master. He just kept telling me to face myself and observe myself. So that's what I've done so many years. I just keep observing myself. So you want to identify your beliefs. Once you have identified it, probably it would be good if you discover the origin of your beliefs. Now, this part, the origin part, is actually quite difficult. You have to do a lot of shadow work to dig within. Yeah, for example, I always felt like I wasn't good enough and I don't deserve. And I did not know why. And I did a lot of digging and I used the method to talk to my unconscious mind. Basically, your unconscious mind remembers everything that happened to you. It knows and understands your beliefs. You can ask and receive answer from your unconscious mind. Yeah, this method's not from the shadow work, not the traditional one, because the traditional shadow work talks about using journaling or archetypes and all that stuff. Yeah, this method is actually from the pranic healing. This is the good thing about when you actually go on multiple paths, like the path of the chakras and energy, path of awareness, path of the heart. When you go on multiple paths, you learn about their different methods, and sometimes you can use good methods from one path to help you achieve your goal. So yeah, the method is quite simple. Since your unconscious mind remembers everything that happened to you, and it actually protects you. So sometimes because there's too much pain, excuse me, because there's too much pain. So in order to protect you, you actually cut off the connection so you don't remember. Yeah, that's why sometimes we don't remember many things from our childhood. We don't remember the painful events. That's your unconscious mind protecting you. It actually forms a blockage, but your unconscious mind actually knows to remember everything. And you can actually relax your body, lay down. This is a method. You can relax your body, lay down, and just ask your unconscious mind. For example, why do I always feel like I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, or I don't deserve? Why? Why? And then you just sit down, relax, and see what comes up. Yeah, it took me about 3 months of doing this pretty much daily to ask that question. And here's the way your unconscious mind can communicate with you. It can communicate through a certain feeling, certain image, even through a certain physical pain in certain part of your body, through an impression, through a physical discomfort, through suddenly knowing something, through suddenly muttering something. Like you suddenly muttering, oh God, I hate him, or I hate this. But it's not conscious. You just mutter words out. Or through hearing someone's voice from the past, usually your childhood. Yeah, for me, I want to know why I always feel like I wasn't good enough and I don't deserve. So I did this practice for about 3 months. An image came out. The image was quite simple. It's me when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember, but I got like a 98 or 99 on the math test. I was really happy. I took it home to show my mother, and my mother looked at it and she said, "Get 100 next time." And my world just shattered. And I may have believed that, saying that if I wasn't perfect, I'm not good enough. So I became a perfectionist, just tried to please her to get her validation. And then I believed that I wasn't good enough. And this is just me as a little boy. And this belief just kept going on, driving my entire life. So it started that self-sabotaging and all that stuff. And because I never got any validation from my mother, I became a people pleaser to please others in exchange for their validation. Whatever you're not getting from home, you'll naturally go outside of home to get it. This is one of the unconscious pattern. So I just keep repeating and repeating. So that's how I discovered the origin of my limiting beliefs on that part. And the thing about limiting beliefs that whenever a traumatic event happens, you will usually form certain self-defeating or limiting beliefs, and those beliefs will break you into pieces. Yeah. So what happens next once you know the origin of your beliefs, like talking to your unconscious mind, that image, now you understand it's coming from you when you're 7 or 8 years old. That's when it was formed. You want to do what's called a soul retrieval. That's the in the healing thing. Just basically just means that taking the broken pieces of you, you rejoin them together. Because when the limiting beliefs happens, there's a story you're telling yourself. That's the story that controls you. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve. So what you can do is that you basically go back to the time when you're a little boy or a little girl, to that event when you made that decision, that when that belief was formed that you're not good enough. You tell that little boy or little girl, telling him or her, I love you. You give him a hug. You are good enough. I'm always here for you. You're always deserving. So basically, you're reaching into your inside, deep inside of you. This is really about healing part now. Yeah, it's not really covering the space, but you go deep within you. You meet your inner wounded child at the event then when he or she was hurt and forming these terrible beliefs. And then you give a hug, plenty of love. You tell a different story. Yeah, you rewrite the story. You may have to do this many times, not just once. Yeah, otherwise the stories will keep controlling you. This is one of the healing techniques. They call it soul retrieval. But the problem with this is that that's still not good enough. Because the thing is that you have believed in this belief for so many years, you have done it so many times, it becomes such a strong pattern within you. And this pattern creates a force, a momentum within you. So whenever good things happen, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. They just naturally comes up, appear from the inside. There's nothing wrong with it. This is natural and normal. So basically, what you have to do is you actually have to do inner practice. It's just overcome your beliefs. Here's why I do it. Whenever a belief appears from the inside, you need to do an inner practice overcome it. The first thing that I do is that I become aware of it. Oh, that feeling of I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it. It's within me now. That's an awareness. Don't judge it. Don't resist it. Don't react to it. Don't try to run away from it. Just calm. If you can, practice calmly. Tell yourself, this is an old belief. And tell yourself the opposite. For example, tell yourself, I'm worthy. I worked hard. I deserve this. And you want to feel it. Take a deep breath and let it go when you exhale. Yeah, when you do this kind of practice, you're facing the internal situation that arrive at the moment. There's really no past or the future. So that is your reality at that moment. And when you do this practice, there's no such thing as failure. The more you practice, the more you'll free yourself from this belief. And over time, you can see the impact of this limiting belief start to weaken. Yeah, you have to keep chipping at it. It took me years. And this is your conscious response to an unconscious old belief. Mhm. In addition, you will gradually increase your inner clarity and strength. And practice makes perfect. Yeah. And these type of beliefs are usually rooted very deeply within you, so they will appear again and again. You just have to keep being aware of it. Don't react. Don't judge. And don't try to run away. Don't try to resist. Don't try to pretend they're not there. And you tell yourself a different story, a better one. You're reprogramming yourself. If you can actually talk to a therapist and there or people or group that can help you through this, probably even better. But when you do it yourself, it's usually a lot harder. You want to keep practicing. As you practice this, it will become easier and easier. And one day you just see it appear. Oh, okay, the same old thing. And you just watch it just do its thing and dissipate. You don't interact with it. You don't go with it. You just let it come, watch it, be aware of it. It does its thing, then watch it go. And then you continue doing your own thing. Yeah. And this is, to me, I believe this is one of the fastest way you can actually rewrite your stories, create consciously create a future you want instead of unconsciously reacting to the old beliefs and repeat the past. Yeah, this is conscious living. And the more you do this, the easier we'll get. And you'll become stronger and stronger within. And one of the magic thing about this is that you start to see a lot of people, they're going through the same thing. Because, like, for example, if you're a people pleaser, you decide to face this and stop this pattern. So you decide to please yourself before others. That's your practice, or it is not pleasing other people. Because you become aware of your own tendencies and you have done practice as much you can to face it and overcome it, you can suddenly see other people going through the same thing. They may or may not be working on this, but you see how their people pleasing tendencies are controlling them unconsciously, or even fears. Their fears are uncertainties. If you decide to face this, use this method, the better you get at it, the more you can see fear in others. I don't know why this is true, but whatever inner clarity you gain within about your tendencies, you can suddenly see that in other people. Yeah, that's why I think that the more you understand yourself, the more you suddenly understand other people. And through this understanding that you learn to be more compassionate and have empathy for yourself and others, because we're all on individual journeys, so you learn not to judge them, be harsh at them. Everyone have their own obstacles and barriers they're going through. Every, they're going on their own journey, learning their own lessons. They may be repeating, they may be failing. It's okay. It's just a human spirit and human journey. So it's completely okay. So you learn to judge yourself less, have more compassion for yourself and others. Yeah, then you just keep doing this practice, just really just you versus you. There's no other people. And when you're on this journey, you learn to stay away from certain people that they're trying to pull back to old you. Because whenever you're actually making improvements from the inside and you're between the old you and the new you, what's going to happen is that the first thing that's going to happen is that internally your mind wants to know who you are or who the fuck you are. But because you're between the old you and the new you, it doesn't know. And if your mind doesn't know, your mind loves certainty. If it doesn't know, it's going to give you chaos. It's going to keep bothering you. Who the fuck are you now? Are you the old you or the new you? What is going on? So it creates this internal anxiety and stress. Now, externally, that people know that you're changing, you're evolving, and you're killing off the old you that they love and they're comfortable with. And usually, when this happens, this will create a certain fear, unconscious fear within them. They're losing you. They want to owe you back. And some people, there's many different people that will react differently. Some of them, they will just tend to stay away because they know you don't resonate with them. And there are others, they're more controlling. They'll try to trigger the OU back. So they'll keep mentioning what what used to happen, what you used to do, or the mistakes that you have done. Oh, you wouldn't have said that. Blah blah blah. What's happening to you? I love the OU. Who are you now? Blah blah. This they're trying to bring the OU back so they can maintain that comfort within them about their image of you. So this actually creates an external pressure, stress, and sometimes anxiety. So internally, you have this stress, pressure, anxiety, and externally, you have this stress, pressure, and anxiety. Yeah, you have to go past the test to become the new you, and it will attack you internally and externally at the same time. And plus, your confusion and uncertainty about who you are. And there's really no good solution for this phase when you're going through changes like that. All you have to do is trust what you're doing is right. Trust yourself. Trust that you're becoming the new person. You're leveling up. You just need to endure. And you have to keep saying no to these people who want to owe you back. Mhm. Like, for example, when I decided to, I used to play chess for many, many years. When I decided to stopped playing chess. I got really tired of it. It was just the same old group, same old crowd, laughing and making fun of each other and thinking that's fun. Yeah, thinking since I'm a better chess player than you, I'm more superior than you should respect me, that type of thing. And I look down on you. Yeah, it's kind of low vibe in my opinion. And this my chess group at the time that I was hanging out with. And I just made a decision to stop playing chess. And they kept calling me every time there's a gathering. Or they leave me a message, they want me back. Yeah, that during that time, once I know what is happening within and without, I just kept saying no. Eventually, they fade away. And then there's a time that when the new you is formed, the moment the new you is formed, your mind will suddenly fall in line. You'll start buttering you. Oh, okay. This is the new you. Okay, good. I'm going to stop asking who you are. And the confusion will go away. Then there's this whole new clarity. Another thing about this is that when you're at this phase between a new you and old you, when you're trying to get rid of the practice, not repeating the same old pattern, old beliefs, you have to be careful of new people coming into your life because you don't know if they're there to pull you back or lift you up. You simply don't know. You can't tell the future. You can't tell from the surface. So the best thing is that just politely interact with the new people. Don't try to form too deep a relationship too fast because you could be unconsciously trying to use them as a coping mechanism for your internal chaos and external pressure. Just be polite, minimal interactions, see how it goes, and keep focusing on your transformation. Yeah, once you have done all this and you became the new you, then you know truly know how powerful you are. If you can go through this, you can go through anything. And you deserve the success that you work so hard for. Yeah, this limiting belief and self defeating beliefs, this upper limits will still come up, but they will no longer control you. Your experience of life will become so much better. Uh, that's about it. Thank you so much for the listener. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And have a beautiful Sunday. Until next time, I love you all. Bye.